If you had told me 6 months ago that my son's wedding day would end with me being painted as a dependent old woman, I would have laughed right in your face. I'm Evelyn Carter, 69 years old, sharp as a tack, and I've lived in Charleston, South Carolina, nearly my whole life. I raised my son, David, on my own after his father passed when he was just a boy. And let me tell you, I didn't survive widowhood, 3 jobs, and 30 years of paying mortgages just to end up as someone's charity case. But on that Saturday afternoon, sitting inside the grand sanctuary of First Baptist Church downtown, the same church where I married David's father 44 years ago, I thought maybe things were finally falling into place. David looked so handsome in his navy suit, his sandy brown hair slicked neatly back, his smile wide and boyish the way it had been when he was little. His bride, Sophia, was radiant in a lace gown that shimmered in the candlelight. She had the kind of beauty that turned heads in every room, and she knew it. I wanted to believe her beauty matched her heart. I had every reason to try. For months leading up to that wedding, I'd pinched every penny, clipping coupons, walking instead of driving, cutting out small luxuries like hair appointments and dinners out. Piece by piece, I scraped together $18,000, my savings from Social Security checks, little retirement accounts, and the rainy day money I'd hidden in coffee cans over the years. That money went toward their dream, a down payment on a new house just outside Charleston and the wedding Sophia had always imagined. I told myself it was worth it. After all, what mother doesn't want to see her only child happy? What grandmother-to-be doesn't want her grandbaby, because yes, Sophia was expecting, to have a safe home to grow up in. The ceremony was beautiful. The reception was held at a country club that, funny enough, I used to scrub dishes in when I was a teenager. I stood there in my borrowed emerald green dress, looking around at the chandeliers and the buffet tables piled high with shrimp and grits, thinking, well, Evelyn, you've done it. You've given your son the start you always promised him. For a moment, I was proud. Then Sophia stood up to give her speech. She raised her champagne glass, her diamond ring catching the light, and smiled at the room of her sorority sisters, co-workers, and family members. Her voice dripped honey, but the kind that makes your teeth ache. I just want to take a moment to thank Evelyn Carter, she said, motioning toward me. She's been living with us for a few months now, helping out in so many ways. She's shown me what true loyalty looks like in a family. I felt my heart swell. Maybe I'd misjudged her, I thought. Maybe she was about to acknowledge the sacrifices I'd made. Sophia continued. Some mothers, when their sons get married, they step back. But Evelyn has taught me something different. She's shown me that a mother's job is never really over. Even when times are hard, she's there, financially, emotionally, always giving. The applause was hesitant, uncertain. I felt heat rising in my cheeks. Because I suddenly understood exactly what she was doing. She wasn't thanking me. She was branding me. Publicly announcing that I was still paying my grown son's way, that I was living under their roof because I couldn't manage alone. To everyone listening, I wasn't a strong woman who had built her life from grit and faith. I was a burden. The polite smiles from the guests burned holes in me. I saw the sideways glances, the whispered, bless her hearts. My throat closed tight. I told myself I could shake it off, that tomorrow would be better. But tomorrow was worse. The morning after the wedding, I padded downstairs in my slippers, still tired from the festivities. I expected quiet, maybe some leftover cake and coffee. Instead, I found Sophia sitting at the kitchen table with a man in a suit. Papers were spread out like a high-stakes poker game. Good morning, Evelyn. Sophia sang, her smile wide and false. This is Mr. Daniels from Coastal Legal. We just need to go over a few documents with you. I poured myself coffee, forcing my hands not to tremble. After nearly 7 decades, I know an ambush when I see one. What kind of documents? I asked, my voice steady. Well, Sophia said, glancing at the notary, David and I have been talking. We think it's time to make sure you're, well, taken care of. You've been so generous with the down payment, and we want to ensure your future security. So we've gone ahead and arranged for you to move into Magnolia Assisted Living. It's a beautiful facility, Evelyn. 24-hour care, activities, a library. They even have a garden. I nearly dropped my coffee. Excuse me? Mr. Daniels cleared his throat. Mrs. Carter, according to these papers, you'd be signing away your rights to the house. In exchange, your assisted living expenses will be covered for 1 year. 1 year. That was their offer. Strip me of my investment, my independence, and in return, pay for 12 months in a place I hadn't even agreed to visit. Sophia's smile never wavered. It's for the best, Evelyn. You've seemed a little forgetful lately, and David worries about you living independently. This way, you'll be safe, and we'll have peace of mind. Forgetful. That word hit me like a slap. Forgetful because I misplaced my glasses once. Forgetful because I asked her to repeat herself when she whispered. I wasn't senile. I wasn't weak. But Sophia had been planting that narrative for weeks. I set down my mug and looked her dead in the eye. Funny, I said. I seem to remember the deed to this house has my name on it, right alongside David's. And that $18,000 wasn't a gift. It was a loan, with paperwork to prove it. For the first time, the mask slipped. Her smile faltered, just for a second. Evelyn, she said softly, her voice tight, let's not make this harder than it has to be. You want David to be happy, don't you? I leaned back in my chair, every nerve in my body buzzing. I'd spent my whole life protecting my son, sacrificing for him, giving everything I had so he could stand tall. And now, barely 48 hours after saying, I do, his wife was trying to erase me. She thought she had me cornered. She thought I was just another gullible old woman too tired to fight. But Sophia had made a grave mistake. She'd forgotten that I'd been David's mother for 42 years. And I knew how to play the long game. The morning after Sophia and her notary friend tried to corner me, I sat alone at the kitchen table in their big new house, the one I'd helped pay for, and felt the strangest mix of anger and clarity. Anger, because I could see now that Sophia hadn't just stumbled into this scheme. She'd been laying the groundwork for months. And clarity, because I realized I wasn't just fighting for a house. I was fighting for my independence, my dignity, and the story of my life. When you're nearly 70, people expect you to be grateful for whatever scraps of control they leave you. But I've buried a husband, raised a son alone, and survived hurricanes that tore through Charleston and left me rebuilding from nothing. I wasn't about to roll over for some 32-year-old who thought designer handbags made her smarter than me. I remembered the first hints, Sophia's gentle comments about my forgetfulness. Like the time I asked if it was Wednesday or Thursday after I'd had the flu for a week. Oh, Evelyn, she had said with a laugh that wasn't really a laugh, you lose track of days so easily. Or the time I asked her to speak up because she was whispering on the phone and she turned to David later and said, your mom's really having trouble following conversations lately. At the time, I brushed it off. But now I saw it clearly. She'd been planting seeds of incompetence. A narrative. And that morning with the notary was supposed to be the harvest. Well, she'd underestimated me. That afternoon, when Sophia left for her manicure appointment, I finally did something I hadn't done since moving into their house. I went through my own paperwork. See, Sophia had convinced David to move my important documents into their bedroom closet, for safekeeping. But what she really meant was, somewhere Evelyn can't get to without asking. What she didn't know was that I'd made copies. And those copies were locked in a fireproof box at my friend Lillian's condo downtown. Lillian and I have been friends since nursing school, 40 years of coffee, secrets, and shoulders to cry on. And Lillian always said, Evelyn, you prepare for storms before they come. So I drove to Lillian's, opened that little box, and pulled out exactly what I needed. The original deed with my name and David's side by side. The canceled check for $18,000 marked, down payment loan. And the kicker, those power of attorney papers David asked me to sign 6 months ago. Sophia thought those papers gave her the golden key. What she didn't know was that my lawyer, old Mr. Johnson on Meeting Street, had added a very specific clause. The power of attorney was only valid if 2 independent physicians declared me mentally incompetent. In other words, as long as I could hold a conversation and balance a checkbook, their little plan was nothing but smoke. I smiled to myself, the kind of smile you give when you've been underestimated and it's finally your turn to prove them wrong. That evening, David texted me from the gym. Sorry I missed this morning. How did it go with the paperwork? The paperwork. As if signing away my life was just another errand, like buying milk. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed back, we'll talk when you get home. But of course, he didn't come home. He stayed at his buddy's house. He always hated confrontation. That was the boy I'd raised, the boy who'd once slid a letter under my bedroom door asking for a bike instead of asking face to face. The boy who, at 17, had his girlfriend call me to say he'd wrecked his car. And now, at 42, he was still letting someone else do the dirty work. That left me and Sophia, eating takeout in silence at their marble kitchen island. She sat across from me, dipping dumplings into soy sauce like she had all the time in the world. Evelyn, she said at last, her voice sweet enough to rot your teeth, I hope you know we're doing this because we love you. David worries constantly about your safety. Magnolia assisted living would give him such peace of mind. Peace of mind, I repeated, my fork frozen halfway to my mouth. And what about my peace of mind, Sophia? You'll love it there, she said quickly. Social hours, activities, people your own age. You'll make new friends. People my own age, I murmured, as if I'd suddenly become a relic who couldn't function in the real world. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. Look, Evelyn, you're almost 70. Living on your own is only going to get harder. We're just being realistic about your limitations. Limitations. The words sat between us like poison. Tell me something, Sophia, I said, keeping my voice calm. When did you decide I couldn't make my own decisions? Her jaw tightened. We're not saying you can't. We're just saying it's time to be proactive. Proactive, I repeated. Or opportunistic? Her eyes narrowed, just for a moment. And that's when I knew I was right. That night, I lay awake in the guest bedroom, the room that had once been called temporary, when they convinced me to leave my apartment. Now I understood, temporary had become permanent. This wasn't about keeping me safe. It was about getting rid of me. And I realized something else, Sophia had a backup plan. If I didn't sign those papers voluntarily, she'd find another way. She was too confident, too smug. She thought she had me trapped. I just didn't know how far she was willing to go. I found out the next morning. I woke early and made blueberry pancakes, the same ones I'd made for David since he was 5 years old. Sophia wandered in wearing silk pajamas, perfectly coordinated like she was stepping onto a magazine set. What's the occasion? She asked, eyeing the stack. No occasion, I said. Just felt like cooking. She sat down, cutting her pancakes into neat little squares. I hope you've had time to think about our conversation yesterday. Mr. Daniels can come back this afternoon if you're ready to move forward. I sipped my coffee. Can I ask you something first? Of course. What made you decide I needed assisted living? Specifically. What incident? She froze. Just for a second. It's not about one incident. It's about the overall picture. But there must have been something, I pressed. Did I fall? Leave the stove on? Get lost driving? Well, no, but, she forced a laugh. You know how it is, forgetting things, wandering, trouble managing medicine. I leaned forward. Sophia, you can't point to a single moment where I've shown any decline, can you? Her fork clinked against the plate. You're being difficult. No. I'm being specific. The mask cracked. Her voice sharpened. Why are you fighting this? We're trying to help you. Or help yourselves. I asked quietly. Her face flushed red. How dare you accuse me of theft? I'm not accusing you. I'm asking why my supposed safety just happens to line up with you gaining full ownership of this house. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Finally, she stood, her chair scraping the tile. You're paranoid. Bitter. You can't let go of David. You've inserted yourself into our marriage and now you're trying to control us with money. You always have. I sat back, letting her words wash over me like cold rain. They stung because there were grains of truth in them. I had leaned on David over the years. I had been afraid of letting go. But none of that justified what she was doing. I took a deep breath. Even if you believe that, it doesn't give you the right to trick me out of my money and my home. She laughed, a hard, brittle sound. Money you gave us freely. You can't just take it back when you don't like how we use it. I reached into the drawer beside me and pulled out a folder I'd hidden the night before. I laid the papers across the table like a winning hand in poker, the loan agreement, the deed, the power of attorney with its protective clause. Her face went pale. You weren't supposed to, she whispered. No, I cut her off. I wasn't supposed to be sharp enough to keep receipts. But I did. And if you think you can gaslight me into a nursing home, you'd better be ready for a fight. Sophia's expression hardened. Her voice turned cold. You have no idea what I'm capable of, Evelyn. You'd be wise not to push me. For the first time in weeks, a chill ran down my spine. Because I finally believed her. By the time the sun rose over Charleston the next morning, I'd made up my mind. Sophia thought she was playing chess with a gullible old woman, but she'd forgotten one thing: life had already taught me how to play the long game. I didn't have her youth, her designer suits, or her polished smile. What I had was experience, patience, and a stubborn streak that could stop a freight train. So I started taking notes. Literally. I pulled out a little spiral notebook, the kind I used to jot down grocery lists, and I began documenting everything. Dates. Times. Exact words. March 5th, Sophia said I left the stove on, but I'd only made toast. March 18th, she told the neighbor I seemed confused about what day it was, but I'd just recovered from the flu. April 2nd, she told David I forgot dinner plans that she herself canceled that morning. Line by line, I built my own case. Because if she wanted to frame me as incompetent, I'd show the truth. The more I wrote, the angrier I got. She wasn't just planning to erase me, she was rewriting my story, turning normal human moments into evidence. She wanted me invisible, tucked away in Magnolia assisted living while she and David built their picture-perfect life on my dime. But if there's one thing I've learned in nearly 70 years, it's this: people who underestimate you are the easiest to beat. That afternoon, I called my physician, Dr. Patel, a woman who'd been seeing me for over a decade. Doc, I said, I need a letter. Something official, stating I'm of sound mind and capable of handling my affairs. She chuckled. Evelyn, you're sharper than half the 40-year-olds I treat. I'll have it ready tomorrow. Step 1, secure my competency. Step 2, secure the law. I called the Charleston County Sheriff's Department and asked for the Elder Abuse Division. A Detective Ramirez answered. I told him everything, how Sophia had maneuvered me into their home, pressured me into moving, tried to get me to sign away property rights. He didn't laugh. He didn't brush me off. He said, "Mrs. Carter, what you're describing fits the definition of elder financial exploitation. Do you have documentation?" I smiled into the phone. "Honey, I've got a folder that'll make your head spin." We arranged to meet later that week. I knew I couldn't tip my hand too soon. So I went on as if nothing had changed. I cooked dinners. I folded laundry. I even let Sophia prattle on about baby names as though we were just two women bonding over family. Inside, I was steel. 2 days later, Sophia made her next move. It was breakfast. She waltzed into the kitchen, phone in hand, fake concern painted across her face. "Evelyn, we need to talk," she said, her voice just a notch too soft. I set down my coffee. "About what?" "I found something in your purse yesterday," she said, holding up a prescription bottle. "Xanax. Not prescribed to you." My heart dropped for half a second before I remembered. Sarah Mitchell, my neighbor from my old apartment, had asked me to pick up her prescription the week she moved to Atlanta. I'd tucked it in my bag and forgotten all about it. "That's not mine," I said calmly. "I was holding it for a friend." Sophia's smile was ice cold. "Of course. But if anyone were to see this, combined with your forgetfulness, your accusations, it could look like substance abuse." I stared at her, my blood turning to ice water. She leaned in closer. "If you don't cooperate, I'll have no choice but to tell David you've developed a problem." "And then what?" "He'll have to file for guardianship, for your own protection. You'll lose everything anyway." There it was. The threat. Plain as day. For a long moment, I said nothing. Then I smiled, slow and deliberate. "Sophia, do you know what your problem is?" Her eyes narrowed. "Excuse me? You think threats make you powerful. But threats only work if the other person doesn't have a plan of their own." She blinked, caught off guard. "Here's the thing," I continued. "I've been keeping notes. Every lie, every manipulation, every time you tried to twist the truth. And I've already spoken with a detective about elder abuse." The blood drained from her face. "You can wave that pill bottle around all you want," I said, my voice steady as stone. "But I've got receipts. Loan agreements. Deeds. Doctor's notes. Even emails." Her head snapped up. "What emails?" "Oh, the ones where you told David you needed to handle the Evelyn situation before refinancing." For once, she had no words. "You see, Sophia," I said, pushing back from the table, "you thought you were playing chess. But you forgot, I taught David how to play. And I never lose." That afternoon, Mr. Daniels, the notary, came back with his briefcase and his carefully typed papers. He sat down at the table, clearing his throat like a man about to officiate a business deal. "Mrs. Carter, I understand we're finalizing your assisted living arrangements today," he said. I smiled sweetly. "Actually, Mr. Daniels, I'd like to discuss something else entirely." Sophia froze. I pulled out my manila folder and laid it on the table. "Are you familiar with South Carolina's elder abuse laws?" The notary's eyebrows shot up. Well, that's not really my area." "Then let me educate you," I said. "Financial exploitation of an elderly person is a felony. Punishable by up to 10 years in prison." I slid the loan agreement across the table. Then the deed. Then the medical certification Dr. Patel had handed me that morning. Finally, I placed the printed emails on top like a cherry on a sundae. "Now, Mr. Daniels, tell me, does this look voluntary to you?" He went pale. I wasn't aware." No, you weren't, I cut in. Because you never spoke to me directly. You took Sophia's word that I wanted this. That makes you an accessory. The poor man stammered, gathering his papers like they might shield him from the truth. I think I need to consult with my supervisor. Good idea, I said cheerfully. And while you're at it, check whether your liability insurance covers fraud. Because honey, you're going to need it. He bolted, practically tripping over himself on the way out. That left me and Sophia, alone at the table. She glared at me, eyes blazing. You're going to regret this, Evelyn. No, I said, standing tall, you are. Because I've spent nearly 70 years building a life of honesty and grit. And you've spent 30 building a life of lies. Let's see whose foundation holds up. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt free. Because Sophia had shown her cards. And I'd shown her mine. And now? Now it was war. The house was too quiet after Mr. Daniels fled with his briefcase. You could have heard the old clock in the foyer tick from 3 rooms away. Sophia sat at the kitchen table, her perfect manicure drumming against the marble. For the first time, her mask had slipped completely. No sweet smiles. No sugary tone. Just raw anger. You think you've won, she spat. I leaned against the counter, calm as could be. No, Sophia. I think the game's just started. And the difference between us is, I know how to finish what I start. She stood, grabbing her phone like it was a weapon. David will never believe you. Then let him read the emails. The loan agreement. The deed. Or maybe he'll believe Detective Ramirez when he knocks on the door. Her eyes flashed, and for a split second, I thought she might actually throw the phone at me. But instead, she stormed upstairs, heels clicking like gunshots on the hardwood. I let out a long breath. My hands trembled, but my resolve didn't. 2 days later, at 7 a.m. sharp, the knock came. When I opened the door, Detective Ramirez stood there with 2 uniformed officers. Mrs. Carter, he asked politely. I nodded. We'd like to speak with Sophia Carter. Is she home? Oh, she was home. Still in bed, most likely, because her prenatal yoga class wasn't until 10. I called up the stairs, Sophia. Guests for you. She appeared minutes later in a silk robe, her hair disheveled but her expression carefully arranged. That expression didn't last long. Mrs. Sophia Carter, Ramirez said, his voice even. You're under arrest for attempted elder financial exploitation, fraud, and coercion. The color drained from her face. This is ridiculous. Evelyn put you up to this. The officers read her rights while they cuffed her, her protests echoing through the halls she thought she owned. And me? I just stood there, clutching the railing, steady as the tides. That afternoon, David finally called. His voice was shaky, like a boy caught in a storm. Mom, they arrested Sophia. She says you framed her. That you're doing this out of spite. I closed my eyes. It stung, hearing him cling to her lies. But I also knew the truth had a way of shining through. David, I said softly, I didn't destroy your marriage. Sophia did that when she chose greed over honesty. What I did was protect myself. And protect you. Silence on the line. Then, a whisper. I don't know what to believe. That's all right, son, I told him gently. The evidence will do the believing for you. 6 months later, I sat in a Charleston County courtroom, the ceiling fans whirring softly overhead. Sophia looked smaller somehow, sitting at the defendant's table in a plain gray suit instead of her usual designer labels. Her lawyer begged for leniency. My client is a first-time mother, he said, and deeply regrets her actions. Judge Richardson's gaze was steady as stone. Mrs. Carter, this court has reviewed the evidence. The loan agreement. The deed. The emails. The testimony. This was not a mistake. This was a calculated scheme to exploit an elderly woman. Sophia began to cry, the same crocodile tears she'd used on David, on me, probably on countless others. The judge didn't flinch. You are hereby sentenced to 18 months in state prison, followed by 3 years probation, and full restitution to Mrs. Evelyn Carter. The gavel came down like thunder. And just like that, the nightmare ended. David filed for divorce 3 weeks later. It broke his heart, but the truth had finally carved through his denial. Their daughter was born that summer, a beautiful little girl with dark curls and big, curious eyes. They named her Lily Grace. The first time I held her in my arms, I felt a rush of something I hadn't felt in months, hope. She gurgled softly, her tiny hand wrapping around my finger, and I whispered, "Don't you worry, baby girl. Grandma's here. And nobody's ever going to erase us." David moved into a smaller house 3 blocks from my apartment. He picked up extra shifts, worked himself ragged, but he came over for dinner twice a week. Some nights, we sat on my balcony eating fried chicken and sweet tea, with Lily on a blanket beside us, kicking her little legs like she was dancing. We didn't talk much about Sophia. We didn't need to. Instead, we talked about Lily's first smile. Her laugh. How she'd grab his nose and squeal like it was the funniest thing in the world. Life was simple again. Not perfect, but honest. And that was enough. One quiet afternoon, I had another visitor, Patricia Green, Sophia's mother. She stood at my door holding a pie, her face tired but kind. "Mrs. Carter," she said, "I just wanted to say. I'm sorry." "For what?" I asked, letting her in. "For not raising my daughter better. For not stopping her sooner. I knew she had tendencies. I just hoped marriage would straighten her out." She set the pie on the table, her hands trembling. "Evelyn, Sophia's done this before. With roommates. With her first husband. Even at the nursing home where she worked. She's always seen people as opportunities. I should have warned you. I should have warned David." I put a hand on hers. "Patricia, you can't carry her sins. You can only decide how to respond now." Her eyes watered. "Then I want to help. If Lily ever needs me, if David ever needs support, I'll be there. We may not share blood, but we can share responsibility." And so we did. Patricia became an unlikely friend, helping with Lily, bringing over casseroles, sitting on my porch swapping stories about our grandchildren. Strange how tragedy sometimes builds bridges you never expected. One evening, after David and Lily left, I sat at my little kitchen table with pen and paper. I wrote a letter addressed to my granddaughter, to be opened when she turned 18. In it, I told her everything. About her mother's choices. About my fight to keep what was mine. About the importance of standing tall, even when the world tries to shrink you. But mostly, I told her this. Never let anyone convince you that age, gender, or circumstance makes you powerless. You come from a line of women who don't back down. And when life tests you, and it will, remember this, strength isn't about fists or money. It's about refusing to be erased. I sealed the letter, tucked it in my Bible, and felt a peace settle over me. A year later, Lily took her first steps, right in my living room. She toddled across the rug, arms outstretched, landing in David's arms as he laughed through tears. I clapped, my heart so full I thought it might burst. "See that, Lily?" I whispered. "Every step you take is proof that we made it through. Stronger. Freer. Together." Sophia had tried to write me out of my own story. But in the end, She gave me something unexpected, the reminder that I was still here, still strong, still capable of shaping the future. And as I watched my granddaughter stumble toward her daddy, squealing with joy, I realized something important. The best revenge isn't a guilty verdict. It isn't restitution or even 18 months in prison. The best revenge is living well. And I intended to live every remaining day exactly that way. Sometimes the best revenge isn't justice, it's living well. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.